Okay, just like we were before, taking content from the Noun project and using that. I did talk about using photos that you can use the rights to. Do you remember that discussion? Well, today we're going to steal some clip art that we can use in our design. Again, in this case, I can go, again, Google, I can go to images, I typed in clouds, and instead of using images, I went to tools over here. If you click on tools, you get more. And then over here, you got size, you got color, you have rights. You can use labeled for non-commercial reuse and modifications, right? That's what we want. We want to be able to use it legally. And then over here where it says type, what do we want? Clip art, or a line drawing, or a GIF. Clip art. And there we go. We got our clip art here. So if you want, you can use clip art in this project. It's more that you learn how to lay things out in Photoshop than it is to make things. And we have plenty of classes on how to make things. So what kind of weather do we want for our app today? Sunshine? Look at this one. Rainbow with... I don't understand what that one would be. Ooh, I like this one. Something like this. Nice and simple. Do you see that? This is kind of too cartoonish, but this is more of a graphic, right? You'll notice it says SVG right here, and it's actually on Wikipedia, or we could call them. So what is an SVG file? SVG, do you see that right there? So SVG is like what you would make in Illustrator. It is a vector that is put online and is saved in the SVG format. It's actually a version of XML. Do you remember when we were just looking at that and at the video from the AccuWeather, and they said, oh, you get an XML file that you can include. So XML was developed around 1997, and the reason why they developed SVG is so that you could expand upon HTML. HTML is very limited. So they built something called XML that allows you to add things to your browser. In the early days of SVG, we used to have a plugin to be able to view an SVG file, but nowadays it's included in all browsers, right? You don't really need a plugin. If you use an SVG like this right here, and you right-click and save link as, save image as, remember doing that? Oh, it says images. Why does it not say? I don't know what this is saying. What is it? Oh, maybe you have to go there and download it. Well, I had to go there and download. Maybe I can download from here. Hold on. Oh, it says PNG now. Why does it say SVG and then .png? I guess they're converting it. What's this? Download. What does this say? Oh, this is SVG. Yes, I want to download. Full resolution. Oh, here it is. Now it's giving me the SVG file. I'm going to save that. Hold on, let me see how I can save this. No. Let me see. Maybe if I right click, download. Is there a way we can right click there? Save link as. No. It wants to make it into a pixel for some reason. Doesn't matter. Whatever. So if you find SVG and you can download it, SVG, you can actually open it in Illustrator. That was my whole point here. Is what I'm trying to show you is that if you find an SVG file like this one, here's an SVG file right here. You should be able to download it. And it's not letting me. Can I download it from here? Keeps converting it to a PNG. I would love to save it as just SVG. Can I download the SVG file? Oh, here it is. I found one. Okay, I found one somehow. I right-clicked on this one. So let me get back here. Okay, that's enough. what else were we going to do? Oh, maps, right? We wanted to include a map. So let's say we're doing a location. Again, you can go to maps on Google and you can type in a location. So we're doing Saratoga, right? So again, you want to include this map in your web page. I think we did this in the HTML class. I showed you guys how to do that when I was doing the demonstration in HTML when I did a guest speaking in HTML, right? Again, use the share and use embed map, and it has the iframe, right? We did talk about iframe, right? Iframe is where you can take the content from one place and put it in somewhere else on your website. You guys remember that discussion? Some of you from the HTML class. So most of this content that we get on the internet, most of the stuff I put in my WordPress, you know, if I was using WordPress and I want to put, I can actually steal stuff from somewhere else and put it on my website. Probably the best way is to use the iframe. And who invented the iframe? Who? Who's saved more people on this planet than anybody else, probably. Probably the greatest man who saved more people in Africa than anybody else. Who saved more people in Africa than anybody else in the world today? Bill Gates. You don't know his philanthropy? All the, you know, he saved so many people. Amazing. He should be a saint. Oh, whatever. Microsoft invented iframe in Internet Explorer 3 or 4, I can't remember. Probably around 96, 97. And they wanted to introduce the ability to do that. So they invented something called an iframe in Internet Explorer. And that's how we put a map onto our website very quickly and easily through code. Same with the YouTube, right? If you want to take a video from YouTube and put it on your website, what would you use? Say it loud. iframe. Okay? Same thing. Same way. If I was going to include this in my design, I would just take a screen grab. How do you take a screen grab? Command-Shift-4. Draw a box. And you take a picture, right? Command-Shift-4. Draw a box. Okay, you ready to get to Photoshop? I got my clouds. I got my map. First, let's talk about the SVG. The SVG I downloaded, again, we have included here, oh, that's the PNG. Oh, here's the original SVG file. You see it right here. Again, if you find an SVG file, you can use it inside of the Adobe Suite. You can use it in Illustrator. You can use it in Photoshop. If I right-click on an SVG file, I can open it inside of Illustrator. You can make an SVG file in Illustrator. So here's my, yes, I realize that. They don't have a plan, so hopefully we will have to use a different. Why is it so big? Okay, again, I downloaded this as an SVG file that I found online in the clip art. Remember, we were searching clip art? If you click on it, you'll notice it's actually a graphic, like an object that you would have inside of Photoshop or inside of Illustrator. See that? Has no fill and a stroke. If I want, I can change the color of something. Notice that if it's linked like this, all these objects are linked. You can always go under Object and Ungroup. If you see something, if you download it off the internet, most of the time it's grouped, right? You either ungroup or expand. When we use expand, we use it for what? The image trace, right? Remember when we did the image trace? You can use either one of these for right here. If I say ungroup, it should be allowing me to select this top one separate than the bottom one. So if I click on the top one, I can give that a color. And if I click on the bottom one, I can give that a color. There we go. So I'm going to make two of these. One is red and one is green. Remember to save your artwork as a Illustrator file. You want to make sure that the artboard is already down. Remember we made a search box? Remember that last week we made a search box, right? Or was that the week before? We made a search box, right? We wanted to make the artboard or the art that's here and shrink it down to the size of the art. Do you remember that? To do that, you select the art and you go under Object, Artboards, Fit to Art Bounds. Do you remember me doing that? I'm doing it again. Notice how now the artwork is just the size of the screen, right? So if you're ever working and you want to save something, I want to bring this into Photoshop like this. I'm going to save this. Save as. And let's call it, I'm going to go to Illustrator. I don't need SVG. And let's make this red dude. Red dude. And then I'm going to color it differently. I'm going to make a green one. This will be a green one. And I'm going to save that. And we'll call him Green Dude. Again, you can use SVG files inside of Illustrator. Okay, so we have some Illustrator stuff, we have some Photoshop stuff, we have some images. Let's get to Photoshop. Again, you can see an example of one. Notice how they organize everything into folders. See that? They have a grid here. This was an example I downloaded last week, right? It has the map, it has a contact us, right? It has some images with a slideshow. A typical slideshow has this kind of arrow thing going right here. Again, if you want, let me hide this. Let me hide the guidelines. Again, it has a slideshow of art. It has some text. It has a hero image at the top. It has a logo. It has a navigational bar, right? We kind of made all those things already. Today I'll talk about making some boxes and making them a little bit more interesting using things. If you want, you could steal some things from other layouts. Again, if you want these arrows and stuff, probably the easiest way is just to go to the Noun project, right? I've shown you that a million times already. You know, again, the nounproject.com. And we got right arrow. And so you can download from here, steal one of these if you want. And I showed you how to do that already. Okay, so a lot of the things that you see you can download. I showed you how to make a mask last week with the round option, and when I made the mask, I also used the effects. Do you remember using the effects? Okay, we're gonna do that a little bit today. I'll go over for like 10-15 minutes. I'll show some things, and I'll let you talk to your neighbor, and you can explain to your neighbor what kind of site you're gonna make. It's good to talk about what you're gonna make with somebody else, and maybe they'll give you help. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go over some stuff kind of quickly right now. So again, I'm just going to do a medium size page. Some things you should consider doing would be, again, guidelines. If you want to make a guideline, you put your cursor in the rulers and drag down, drag across, drag across. Some other things you might want to consider doing is, of course, placing things in your objects. Place embedded is probably better than place linked, because the place embedded will become part of your Photoshop file. If I was going to bring my map in, where's my map? Map. Here's my map. Again, once you bring something in and you want to scale it, you can scale it. And when you're done bringing something in, you can use the move tool to make sure that it takes effect. So always click on the move tool, boom, and place it. So this map is ready. Some other things is you can place your place embedded. You can actually place that SVG in there. Remember the one I downloaded? So you can use an SVG. I know I converted it to a vector for you, but you can place an SVG in, and you can see it. Again, you can scale it to whatever size you want it to be, and then you hit your place. And so there's the SVG. Now, since these things are being placed into Photoshop from somewhere else, you'll notice in the layers window it has this little icon right here, which means it's usually a smart object. Now, one of the problems with the smart object inside of Photoshop is you can't do certain things to it. You can't change the color. You can't do things to it. So if you want to alter a smart object inside of Photoshop, you got to kind of change it. That's why I kind of changed the color of this SVG inside of Illustrator first, and then I used it, right? If I brought this directly, like I said, I downloaded the SVG directly from the internet, and I imported it into Photoshop, and you can see it here. I can't change the colors of this. I can't say, oh, I want to put blue in there. It's not like Illustrator where I can say, oh, I'm going to put blue in there and put blue, and that it doesn't change the blue. You can't really do that. You can say edit fill. Oh, look, fill is even grayed out. I can't fill it with blue. The reason why is because it's a smart object. If you want to use smart objects inside of Photoshop, you need to convert them into raster or a bitmap. To do that, you go underneath Layer, Smart Object, where is it? Convert to, no, Rasterize. Or right here, Rasterize here, you can do that. Rasterize Smart Object. What does rasterizing do? If you're using a smart object, it will convert it into pixels. Probably the best thing to do is make sure you have it at the right size. Because the advantage of using a smart object in Photoshop is that you can scale it and it keeps it in vector. The disadvantage is that you can't color it or change it. So if you want to alter this, you can do it by going under Layer, Rasterize Smart Object. Notice the icon goes away right now. Do you see that? So then if I wanted to, it's going to actually have all this as kind of a bitmap now, even inside here. So if I wanted it blue inside the black line here, I could use my magic wand tool and click inside there. See that? And then I could fill that with blue now. But it's still not going to be, it's okay. So you can alter a smart object in Photoshop. Okay, so we did that. I did talk about doing the navigational bar, and I gave you an example of how to do that, didn't I? Next, if I import my clouds, did I not download some clouds? Where was the clouds? Did I download some clouds? That's a butterfly. Oh, here it is. Again, this was a PNG that I downloaded. A PNG. One of the things about a PNG is you'll notice that it is actually kind of about the same size. Notice it's not a smart object, though. See, it's not a smart object. What a PNG, and now I know it says SVG, but do you remember it actually converted it to a PNG? So if you place it, oh, it is a smart object. Oh, it is. Okay. Oh, it has SVG. I swear it had .png at the end. whatever. Here's our SVG. Again, you'd have the same problems that I just showed you. If you want to alter it, you would have to go and change it and rasterize it. So let's put this in the corner, and we could say, and let's make a nice sort of graphic around it. So let's say I was going to make a widget. I'm going to make a widget for my weather for my website. I'm going to use a nice kind of rectangle to go around there. I'm going to draw with a rectangle around my clouds. Again, this is in Photoshop, and you have layers right here. And so again, I'm using a solid object. You can change the color of the object in the properties window. Again, when you make an object, again, I just made the plain rectangle in Photoshop. You have a fill and a stroke, just like any other object, so I can give this a nice background color, maybe a gray. I can make a line that goes around it, maybe a black line. Again, well, that's probably not dark enough because my cloud is white. Let's change it again. Let's make it a little darker. There we go. And so let's put in some text. And so I'm going to put in the town using my Futura. Let's do bold. Nope. Let's do bold, black. And let's make it a little bit bigger. Let's line that up. You can line things up with a guideline. Zoom in here. Line things up with a guideline. And let's put the word weather at the top. And let's make that smaller. It's not as important. People know that it's, and let's make it a little smaller. And then let's put the temperature. Let's put in what it is. It's partly cloudy. Partly? Is that how I spell partly? P-A-R-T-L-Y? Or is that party? Is that partly? Cloudy. Cloud, C-L-O-U-D-Y? No. D-Y. Cloudy. Partly cloudy. There we go. We'll line that up there. And then we got to put the temperature in there. Let's move this over a little bit here. Let's move this over. Make sure everything's aligned. You want things to be aligned. And then let's put in temperature. What is it? 85 degrees. Oof. 85 degrees. And let's put the word current weather. Current weather. Okay. How about that for a nice widget? Not bad. Okay, it's pretty ugly, I think. Here, this is how we're going to make it look better. The problem is the box is boring. Square with a black line around it. Horrible. So, one way, we could get rid of the black line, that's for sure. Boom. Okay, let's get rid of the black line. Let's make the box with round edges. Didn't we learn how to do that? Did we make it round edges? Here we go. Let's put in 30. Let me zoom in a little bit here. Okay, so we got round edges. That looks a little bit more interesting. How about this? Remember our effects that we did last class? Remember the effects? A really nice way would be to apply a nice sort of drop shadow. So select your box, go to your effects, maybe a nice sort of drop shadow. Not too big, kind of small. Just like a little bit, and then you can change the angle. Let's hide the grid guidelines. That looks a little nicer than a sprayed ugly box with a black line around it, right? How did I do that? I made an oval rectangle, and then I just gave it a little bit of a drop shadow. Remember, the effects show up over here. So now that I have my box the way I want it, I can select all the pieces, select them all in the layer window, select all the pieces that I have in the layer window. Oh, I didn't have these clouds in there. Oh, hold on. Select all the pieces in the layer window, and then in the burger menu, in the upper corner of the layers option here, or you can go under layers here as well. This layer right here does the same thing, kind of that does. And you can go and say group layers or something like that. I like to use the pull down menu because it's a little easier. New group from layers. You see that? New group from layers right there. And this would be my weather widget. Weather widget. How about that? And again, it's in a folder. You can actually put folders inside of folders like you would have on your desktop. You can stack them in there. But again, those are things that you should be working on as far as your layout, is grouping things together. Okay, last thing is if you want to make it bigger. Right now I only have a layout, but of course I want to add more content down here. Right? This is going to be a longer website than what you can actually see here. To do that, you can go under Image, Canvas Size. Oh, we were trying to, I was having problems with this last time, wasn't I? What was that my problem with Canvas Size last time? It wasn't working. I had to change the artboard. Remember I was doing this and it wasn't working? And go down. Yeah, it still doesn't work. Why does that not work anymore? I don't understand. I guess if you just go to the click on the background or the artboard right here, see how it says artboard inside the layers? You can drag it down like that, I guess. I don't know. I used to use Canvas Size. Now I guess I use artboard. Okay, I'm going to stop talking now. Hopefully you see that. And what I want you to do is talk to your neighbor next to you and tell them the parts that you're going to make in your website. Remember we drew it on the board? Hopefully you've been thinking about it for a while. So you should talk to your neighbor about